Hey everyone, and welcome to my review looking back at the Qatar Grand Prix, the inaugural Grand Prix in Qatar, and the first time that Formula One has been in Qatar, and a top three of Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, and Alpine's Fernando Alonso. Um, not not a bad Grand Prix at all. Not a bad weekend. Definitely a weekend full of action, plenty of drama off the track as well. But another race where Lewis Hamilton, not the first time this season, where he's been out in front and not really, not a major challenge from behind, and it was more or less under control from Lewis. Unbelievable lap in qualifying, and then as I say, once he was out in front on race day, literally from the first corner on the opening lap. Yeah, he looked in control, and a really uh, great win, good win for him and Mercedes, and they're right back in this drivers' championship. And I think, as a neutral, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, we'd love it to go to the final race, and it looks like that wish could be granted. So yeah, really great weekend for Lewis Hamilton. He just doesn't know when he's down, when he's beaten, I should say, and he never gives up. And for me, I'm not going to lie, he's an inspiration for me and for so many other people out there. And yeah, good on Lewis for what he's doing. No, that's back-to-back wins for the seven-time Formula One world champion. I think the one thing that now I think Lewis will have in his favour, in his advantage, is the fact that obviously he's won world championships. Max hasn't, so in a way, Lewis will. I feel out the two, I think will be better dealing with the pressure. But having said that, I think Max has done a really good job this year. I definitely feel like he's maturing as he's getting older. And I think just the way he's come across this year generally, I think has been great as well. So I think both drivers are good as one another. And I think Lewis definitely, as he's got older, he's definitely shown a lot more maturity. And yeah, and I think Max is starting to do the same as well. So credit to both drivers. But it wasn't quite the perfect weekend for Mercedes. Valtteri Bottas, got a penalty for ignoring yellow flags. In qualifying, which meant that he had a free place drop. And then he got off to a poor start in the race, and then really then wasn't able to make up the ground that he would have liked. It's not the first time where Valtteri has lost places on the opening lap, and then he hasn't really then been able to make that ground into then the field and to make a meaningful impact. Look, it was really unfortunate in terms of what happened to Valtteri in the end, which meant that he had to retire from the race on Sunday. But yeah, big points lost for Mercedes. As really they need both drivers scoring points. But yeah, whilst it was one uh, really good half at the Mercedes garages, the other half wasn't quite as good as Lewis's. So yeah, not the perfect weekend for Mercedes, but a great win for Lewis Hamilton. And then we come on to talk about Red Bull. Talked about Valtteri getting a penalty. Max Verstappen also was given a penalty for ignoring yellow flags in qualifying, which meant that he had a five-place grid drop. But talk about how Valtteri had a poor start on race day. Max had a great start. Obviously, starting on the cleaner side of the grid would have helped, no doubt. But even then, it's up to Max to then take advantage of that. And Max got off to a very good start in the race. It wasn't so long that it didn't take long for him to get up to second place. Didn't quite have the pace to then be able to challenge Lewis for the race win. But really, I think it was all about damage limitation. And the fact that Max also took past this lap as well. That could make a massive difference between now and the end of the season. So yeah, really not a bad weekend at all for Max Verstappen. As for Sergio Perez, difficult qualifying, and I think as a result of that, he wasn't able to quite challenge in the end for the podium. Wasn't able to get on that third step of the podium. But Sergio definitely showed his racecraft on Sunday. Had to get his elbows out, and he did that. So, going from 11th to fourth is not a bad result, not a bad performance from Checo. I think had it not been for the virtual safety car towards the closing stage, I genuinely think that Checo would have got past Alonso. Um, but even then, there's a lot of positives that Checo can take from his race performance on Sunday, and that's definitely something to take going into the final two races of the season. And whilst Mercedes weren't able to score with both of the drivers, Red Bull did, and they were then able to close the gap in the constructors as well. So again, for Red Bull, not the perfect weekend, but not a bad weekend, not a terrible weekend at all. Both drivers scoring points, good points as well, but also Sergio with that result as well. So, he's still in contention to finish third in the Drivers' Championship as well. So there's still a lot to play for, both drivers and also the constructors for all four those drivers. So for Lewis, for Max, obviously, but then also for Sergio and also for Valtteri as well. And obviously Valtteri will want to end his Mercedes career on a high as well. So definitely a lot to play for between both those teams in these final two races. But one of the drivers of the day, if not the driver of the day, Fernando Alonso at Alpine, what looked really strong this weekend. Well, the weekend has just gone in Qatar, and yeah, great to see Fernando Alonso back on the podium. I think definitely a favourable podium with everyone in the Formula One paddock, and yeah, Alonso. Obviously, we saw what happened with the drivers, some of the drivers getting punches towards the end, trying to make that one-stop strategy work. Alonso, you could argue, was right on the edge. I think had been a couple more laps, I think Sergio obviously would have got him, but then potentially Alonso could have got a punch as well. As I just mentioned, I think the virtual safety car did help Fernando, so just to even out the field. But yeah, really great to see Fernando back on the podium, and fingers crossed we get to see more of that next year. But yeah, really strong performance from Alpine, Fernando as well. Really great job in qualifying as well, but also Esteban Ocon as well. Really good points for him, to hold off Lance Stroll, who we're going to talk about, and the Ferraris as well. So a really good weekend overall for Alpine, which now means that they have a healthy lead over AlphaTauri in the Constructors' Championship as well. So, yeah, definitely advantage Alpine for fifth place in the Constructors. Just mentioned about Lance Stroll, really solid weekend for a solid race anyway for Lance Stroll. Didn't quite have a great qualifying session on Saturday, but he definitely made progress on race day. Made a one-stop strategy work, and yeah, fantastic drive from Lance Stroll. Hasn't really had too many of those this season, but give credit where it's due. Really good drive from the Canadian, and hopefully we see a lot more of that next season. And also on the other side of the Aston Martin garage as well, Sebastian Vettel picking up a solitary point as well. So not a bad weekend at all for Aston Martin. I wasn't kind of sure what to expect from them this weekend, but I think going into the final two races, I think this weekend will. I keep saying this weekend. Could the weekend in Qatar that's just gone? Definitely think Aston Martin can take a lot of positives from that, and yeah, interested to see how they fare in these final two races. I think what we can say in the constructors, I think it's looking more and more likely now that Ferrari will finish third in the constructors. So both Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc just finishing behind Lance Stroll on race day. So yeah, more points for Ferrari in their battle against McLaren. And I think it's going to take something pretty remarkable for McLaren to even, for them to be in contention now to get past Ferrari in the constructors. But two races to go, and absolutely anything can happen. And going to Saudi Arabia next, tracks that are similar characteristics to Azerbaijan. You just never know. You just never know what's possible there. So yeah, as I say, uh, not a strong weekend for Ferrari, but a weekend which Ferrari once again finished ahead of their nearest competitors in the Constructors' Championship. And speaking of McLaren, not a great weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. It's just ever since winning in Monza, it's just gone a bit downhill for the Aussies. He's had struggled, but I think, but I think the team in general haven't quite been at it since Monza. But things were looking good for Lando Norris actually in the race. I think he was running as high as fourth until then he had to make that late pit stop because I believe he was about to get a puncture. So that's why McLaren took the safety option. Because had he not done that, then it could have been a race where McLaren left Qatar with no points at all. So look, I think obviously McLaren will be frustrated. We've not been able to keep Lando out there, but from a safety point of view, I think they had to do it. So yeah, so obviously not the result that McLaren and Lando would have wanted, but just a couple of points anyway. For Lando and look, obviously McLaren, it's looking more likely that they will finish fourth in the constructors. But even then, there's a lot of positives that they can take from this season, and there's definitely a lot of positives that they can take going into 2022 as well. So I genuinely still feel it's a good place to be McLaren. I think it's they're good times are coming for McLaren. I really do. So yeah, obviously disappointed for both Lando and Daniel in Qatar, but I've got no doubt that they will bounce back for sure. So yeah, so yeah, difficult weekend for Williams, the likes of Williams, Alfa Romeo as well. Weren't quite able to challenge for points in the end. But also difficult a race for AlphaTauri as well. Actually, both Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly qualified really well on Saturday. Then all of a sudden their race pace just went. It's really struggled with their race pace. And now obviously a big blow for AlphaTauri, knowing that both Fernando, who ended up on the podium, Esteban Ocon finishing fifth. So big blow for AlphaTauri. In their battle for fifth in the constructors. But look, AlphaTauri, there's still a lot of positives they can take from the season as well. It just makes you wonder though, had they had someone say more of experience. Look, obviously Yuki, you got to give these youngsters a chance, opportunity, of course, but had you had an experienced head alongside Pierre Gasly, could AlphaTauri be further up in the constructors? You could argue yes, they could be. But as I say, you've got to give these youngsters an opportunity, and yeah, that comes to that. And you know what, Yuki, on his day, we've seen flashes of brilliance from him this season, but he just needs to put that consistency together. But I've got no doubts that will come. I believe it will come. So yeah, that's the end of my review. Looking back at the Qatar Grand Prix, 2 races to go. Even now, still very difficult to call who will come out on top in the Drivers' Championship and even the Constructors' Championship as well. So a lot to play for, a lot to be excited about, and yeah, bring on Saudi Arabia next. So if you want to talk things Formula One, I'm on Twitter at Baggies20, and I'm also on Instagram at ManishPatel89. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever you're up to, and I will speak to you guys and girls later when I do my preview for the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. Take care, everyone.